less educated state always does the most to take things away from women. Louisiana is near, in terms of education, it's like number 51 out of 51 states. But yet they're the ones that voted to, if the fetal heartbeat was heard, they could not have an abortion.
I hear that. Wow.
Isn't that a mess?
That's a thought.
Yeah, that's a mess. There are no rights for women.
Wow. That's one of the things we talked about, all the abortion bills that are being passed. Yeah.
Isn't that how we started our conversation?
Yeah.
Okay. Get that here. Yeah, we were talking about why there's so many laws being passed about abortion. We talked about the chaos in the atmosphere. Where'd we go from there?
Talking
We
about
talk-
warrior women.
Yeah.
Where was that
We
topic?
talked about the nature of femininity, and Ms. Vermel brought up a situation where she needed to set something right at work,
Yeah.
and she was feeling some kind of way about it afterwards. And so we talked about
She put her boss in check, so to speak,
Mhm.
because it's like she said, he's not concerned about the high rise of the number of cases that they have,
Mhm.
and she was,
Visiting emergency rooms.
yeah,
and falls.
yeah, and the falls.
Double, more than
Yeah.
double.
And she said when she would bring that case, when he would do presentations, it's like he didn't really think about the number that has risen. So she said that,
Hello, Audrey.
Hey,
hey baby,
Good morning.
good morning.
Good morning.
Hi.
how are you?
How's everybody?
Everybody
good.
great. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so,
Let me just say something in case I forget it, please.
okay,
They're gonna bury Uncle Ralph next Saturday. No, next Saturday.
In Innery, right?
Yeah, I'll leave it out. So you know, that's good.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No,
So
no.
she had to put him in check.
yeah, how did she say she did it, Janice?
Let's see. I think she met with him at work or something. I can't remember. It was just the two of them, and he was, I think, having to give a report about some numbers, and he didn't completely understand them, and he wanted her to give the report instead. And she was like, "This is your job. This is what you get paid to do." And she felt like that was a little harsh, but it was the truth. And we kind of talked about, as women, we feel sometimes the need to make everything really nice and keep the peace, but what the universe needs from us is the warrior side that feels that there's something that needs to be set right, and you have to step out there and do it.
Right.
And that's guided very much by an internal sense and not a neck rolling, snapping kind of shallow anger. I thought some more about what that might mean for men, right? Because they express the feminine just like we do, just in a different kind of proportion or different sense. So I wonder what balance might look like for them on the same kind of tip. Maybe they're a little bit too far on the other side. Maybe they're more eager to judge or shut things down rather than pulling back and listening. I don't know. I'm not a man.
Yeah, speak up. Sorry.
Yeah, so that was, yeah.
That was kind of where we ended.
I heard you just say something about the chaos in the universe, and I was just reading about this young doctor in India who committed suicide because she was from one of the caste tribes in India, but had done all the hard work to get to med school, etc. And 3 of her senior doctors who were from more prestigious segments were harassing her, and she ended up, she's 26 and she was married to a doctor. She ended up taking her own life because I guess she couldn't tolerate that.
Wow.
But how we treat each other.
It's still oftentimes considered for women that it's a man's world. In a lot of the, places, they're just women have to step back or think that they have to step back so they won't confront some of the behaviors that the men have. Their expectations that we are stupid.
I think what you had said previously about what was going on in Louisiana,
Mm-hmm.
can you talk, you wanna bring
Oh,
that up so?
Well, I was reading about the.
I don't know.
Excuse me, okay. I was reading about the abortion law that they passed in Louisiana. And Louisiana is primarily, I look at trends in education in terms of where the state ranks in the scheme of things between 1 and 51 states, because we have the territories too. So Louisiana has consistently been on the bottom, followed just ahead of Alabama and Mississippi. And to see that they would vote for a law to prevent if there was a fetal heartbeat, then there would not be any grounds for to have an abortion. How that is just dictating what women can do in controlling their own bodies, or whether they want to be involved with pregnancy. They have no rights, and that's accepted. The judge has given it his good graces, and I can see more states, the Mississippi and Alabama following suit, followed not too far away from South Carolina. But that was a serious concern that I read about.
I have to believe though all of this stuff is just lining up for the next action. I mean, because you're right. After the Roe versus Wade decision in 74, 72, it's only till now that one state after another. So there's got to be something that's coming up, and I'm wondering if it's going to be a major backlash on the part of women voters. So whoever's in power needs to watch out, I think.
Yeah.
Part of that backlash means you get to be in your legislature, and you get to be part of the people who put judges in place and things like that. And so, unfortunately, it's things like that that have to happen when people feel the pressure, and that is real pressure. It's only when people feel the pressure that it's like the wine. You gotta press the grapes to get wine. It's only when people feel that real pressure that it kickstarts them to move to do something.
You know, it impacts.
And that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But
It impacts white women more than it impacts black women. Traditionally,
that's the
black women
point.
will have their children whether they're married or not, and white women traditionally, well, if you look at statistics, will have average of 2 and 3 abortions. They use that as their birth control method.
But we've been talking about the fact that, women, white women will have to step up to the plate. And this may be part of that stepping up and righting things, not only for themselves, but for the rest of womanhood.
Those states, though, that you mentioned, where education, the states where the education is not doing, like they're ranked so poorly. And these are a lot of places where racism is closer to the surface. I won't say that they have more racism necessarily, but it's easier to see. And I think white supremacy has a stronger hold in the legislatures and in the more obvious parts of society, like in those states. Because I was just looking on Wikipedia at the ones that have passed bills successfully, and
Are they not also part of the Bible Belt?
yes,
Mhm.
yes. Let's see. Oh, I wish they'd given me a list. Are they
Hey,
valid?
Judy.
Yeah, please go ahead.
Um, I got distracted before I could bring this up, but y'all were talking about it. I think, so I think it's interesting how folks think that those restrictive abortion laws could never be put into place. They're too restrictive. The states are just pushing, to overturn Roe v. Wade or aspects of it. And then I was reading an article yesterday in El Salvador. Those things are already in place. They already have very restrictive laws, including punishing women and jailing them for having miscarriages.
Wow.
They get 40 years in jail for
Oh
having
my goodness.
Yeah. So I think it's something to keep in mind with all this, in that we sometimes think, oh, it'll never happen. Oh, it's just a policy. Oh, it's blah blah blah. But the Catholic Church had a very big push to do that, and it succeeded in that country. And so, and it's the people who it's hurting, of course, are poor, single women. More than anyone else.
Because
And
rich
you
women
don't
have
want to-
other options that are
Right.
behind the scenes.
Right.
They can still have their abortion if they choose to.
There was the guys that
Probably poor single women who've been harassed and probably
Yes.
had these babies, out of their control,
Some
because they have no
rapes.
access to birth control, no access to anything else. But I read an article yesterday about, I forget the guy's name, it's John Lipowicz, or one of those kind of Middle Eastern names. Anyway, he was talking about, I guess he's a pastor somewhere, one of these mega churches or somewhere. Anyway, I just happened to come upon this article. But he wrote a letter that started off, "Dear Church," and he was saying, he was asking the church, when are they, everybody's exiting from the church. It's like a big new exodus from the church. And he was saying, well, church, when are you gonna step up? Because it's not that people want to see new music or new ways to present something. It's people want to see when the church is going to step up and not be hypocritical, to face down these politicians that are not doing what they should be doing, face down these politicians that they're supporting, who are, telling all these lies, and they won't stand up to them, and to realize that Black lives do matter.
Yeah.
So he was giving all these examples of things that people see as hypocritical with the church, within the church. And the church just sits by silently with all this stuff going on. And then they give their support to the liar in chief. It's just crazy. And he's absolutely right.
But they're brainwashed.
Yes.
They're brainwashed.
You're right. You are absolutely right.
Yeah.
Well, it's just exposing that that's never been a.
But you would
It's
think
never what we
real
thought it
seekers of the truth would be able to see through this stuff. Or maybe they do, and that's why they're exiting the church.
Yes, I was about to say, that's exactly right.
I had some guys that were not green card carrying people, but they worked on my house, and I talked to the young men. They were all young men in their early 20s, and they came from everywhere from El Salvador and it's the place where they have the statue over the town. I can't think of
Brazil?
it. Brazil, yeah. And they were talking about how they were pressed to get married, and they were very concerned about that. In their home, the Catholic Church is the norm, and with that, the push was before they're 20 to them to be married and to be having children. And they were really put out. I thought that was interesting that they said they want to adopt the American way of living where you have the right to choose and to postpone marriage for at least you're 25 or 26. Just throwing it out.
25 to 26.
That's just another example of control.
Yeah.
And I imagine, it's economic, it's social, it's all of those different things. If you're so young that you can't, you have a family to worry about, but you can't take advantage of any other opportunities, and the only thing the church wants you to do is have babies.
Yep.
You don't have time to stop and think about what you're being told, or what you're being, how you're being encouraged to live, because
Right.
you're too busy providing. I can't imagine.
Yeah. It was just, it really was interesting to talk to them. That,
It's not all that different from the evangelical church,
you know,
especially some of them. If you go far enough to the right, the quiverful movement, where you're supposed to have as many children as possible, every child is a blessing, which is, I think,
that's Mormon too, isn't it? Mormon too.
I think Mormons want you to have large families.
Mhm.
I can't remember exactly. Their views shift a little bit with the times, I think. Anything to keep membership.
Yeah.
But if you look at a lot of the Central American countries, they'll have that Catholic influence,
Oh yeah, very strong.
cathedrals and things like that. So
And it's a fight. What nationality?
the Catholics are probably much more persuasive and have done their jobs really well in that area, rather versus the U.S. Because you're dealing with folk, many of whom are uneducated,
Right.
like you say, and who think, okay, the priest is this.
Is everything. The Pope is God.
Back to chaos in general, because that's what we're talking about. Chile just had a tornado down there. Chile on 31st, and they usually don't have tornadoes down there. Usually it's our tornado alley, where the cool air from Canada meets the air from the Gulf of Mexico. It does that. But Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay are usually some of the areas that have tornadoes. But even nature is just taking its toll because of the chaos all over the world.
90 degrees in May, 100 degrees in May.
Yeah, 102, 103. We broke records this past week.
But if we were to actually look at all that stuff with just our natural eyes, it would be easy to get discouraged. But all that says is that there's this massive opportunity for light to right things. That's what that says to me. And it's through some of these catastrophes that people are going to hit that proverbial brick wall within themselves. Because, it's only when we get our own brick walls that we begin to ask questions and begin to want answers apart from the usual answers we get in society or the regular church. There are questions we begin to ask internally. And so, again, unfortunately, you can only be sad for the impact that this is having on people, and particularly in our tornado alley. Tornadoes every day for how long now? It's Donald Trump's Bible. It's Donald Trump's area.
Not
Yeah.
Trump, Donald Duck.
Unfortunately, that's not President Trump. unfortunately though, it's gonna hurt people until,
Oh, yeah.
but how many Jews died until the tension was had? How many black folk died, literally, until the attention was brought to bear for so-called equal rights, because it's not there yet, but at least it's not what it was. So, while it looks discouraging, we gotta look beyond that. It is an opportunity, a great opportunity for light to be exposed.
And I think we're gonna see more chaos because of the heat. And
Yes.
yeah, because what I was telling you about earlier, my concern was about the teacher fighting the student. They were in a brawl
Yeah, I saw that.
at Ridgeview.
A brawl.
Yes,
I saw that.
and
How many people were involved?
just two. The teacher was 35, he was in his 30s, and the student was 15. Both got arrested. Yeah. And normally, I look at stuff and I'm like, okay, not that I dismiss it, but with this one, I'm just like, okay.
But how many, and I don't know the circumstances,
Right.
how many teachers have wanted to
And then
just
they
go
want,
to town on a
but not only
student?
that, they want to give teachers the right to carry a gun.
That's right.
And it seems like that could lead to the Wild Wild West. You know what I mean? Those actions. Yeah.
I mean, students they're not in an area of their lives where they can really calculate risk I mean, of course they're responsible for their actions. I mean,
Yeah.